Brought to you by WikiVD Documentaries. J.K. Rowling. Joanne Rowling, pen names J.K. Rowling and Robert Galbraith, is a British novelist, film and television producer, screenwriter and philanthropist. Best known as the author of the Harry Potter fantasy series. The books have gained worldwide attention, won multiple awards, and sold more than 400 million copies. They have become the best-selling book series in history, and been the basis for a series of films, over which Rowling had overall approval on the scripts, and was a producer on the final films in the series. Born in Yate, Gloucestershire, England, Rowling was working as a researcher and bilingual secretary for Amnesty International when she conceived the idea for the Harry Potter series while on a delayed train from Manchester to London in 1990. The 7-year period that followed saw the death of her mother, birth of her first child, divorce from her first husband, and relative poverty until she finished the first novel in the series, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, in 1997. There were 6 sequels, The Last, Harry Potter, and The Deathly Hallows, in 2007. Since then, Rowling has written 4 books for adult readers, The Casual Vacancy, and under the pseudonym Robert Galbraith, the crime fiction novels The Cuckoo's Calling, The Silkworm and Career of Evil. Rowling has lived a rags-to-riches life story, in which she progressed from living on state benefits to multimillionaire status within 5 years. She is the United Kingdom's best-selling living author, with sales in excess of £238 million. The 2016 Sunday Times Rich List estimated Rowling's fortune at £600 million, ranking her as the joint 197th richest person in the UK. Time magazine named her as a runner-up for its 2007 Person of the Year, noting the social, moral, and political inspiration she has given her fans. In October 2010, Rowling was named the most influential woman in Britain by leading magazine editors. She has supported charities including Comic Relief, One Parent Families, Multiple Sclerosis Society of Great Britain and Lumos. Name. Although she writes under the pen name J.K. Rowling, her name, before her remarriage, was simply Joanne Rowling. Anticipating that the target audience of young boys might not want to read a book written by a woman, her publishers asked that she use 2 initials rather than her full name. As she had no middle name, she chose K as the second initial of her pen name. From her paternal grandmother, she calls herself Jo. Following her marriage, she has sometimes used the name Joanne Murray when conducting personal business. During the Leveson inquiry, she gave evidence under the name of Joanne Kathleen Rowling, and her entry in Who's Who lists her name also as Joanne Kathleen Rowling. Birth and family. Rowling was born to Peter James Rowling, a Rolls-Royce aircraft engineer, and Anne Rowling, a science technician, on the 31st of July 1965 in Yate, Gloucestershire, England, northeast of Bristol. Her parents first met on a train departing from King's Cross Station bound for Arbroath in 1964. They married on the 14th of March 1965. One of her maternal great-grandfathers, Dugald Campbell, was Scottish, born in Lamlash on the Isle of Arran. Her mother's paternal grandfather, Louis Volant, was French, and was awarded the Croix de Guerre for exceptional bravery in defending the village of Courcelles-le-Comte during the First World War. Rowling originally believed he had won the Legion d'Honneur during the war, as she said when she received it herself in 2009. She later discovered the truth when featured in an episode of the UK genealogy series Who Do You Think You Are?, in which she found out it was a different Louis Volant who won the Legion of Honor. When she heard his story of bravery and discovered the Croix de Guerre was for ordinary soldiers like her grandfather, who had been a waiter, she stated the Croix de Guerre was better to her than the Legion of Honor. Childhood. Rowling's sister Diane was born at their home when Rowling was 23 months old. The family moved to the nearby village Winterbourne when Rowling was 4. She attended St. Michael's Primary School, a school founded by abolitionist William Wilberforce and education reformer Hannah More. Her headmaster at St. Michael's, Alfred Dunn, has been suggested as the inspiration for the Harry Potter headmaster Albus Dumbledore. As a child, Rowling often wrote fantasy stories which she frequently read to her sister. Aged 9, Rowling moved to Church Cottage in the Gloucestershire village of Tutshill, close to Chepstow, Wales. She attended secondary school at Wydene School and College, where her mother worked in the science department. When she was a young teenager, her great-aunt gave her a copy of Jessica Mitford's autobiography, Ons and Rebels. Mitford became Rowling's heroine, and Rowling read all of her books. Rowling has said that her teenage years were unhappy. Her home life was complicated by her mother's illness and a strained relationship with her father, with whom she is not on speaking terms. Rowling later said that she based the character of Hermione Granger on herself. When she was 11, Steve Eddy, who taught Rowling English when she first arrived, remembers her as not exceptional, but one of a group of girls who were bright and quite good at English. Sean Harris, her best friend in the upper sixth, owned a turquoise Ford Anglia which she says inspired a flying version that appeared in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. At this time, she listened to the Smiths and the Clash. Rowling took A-levels in English, French and German, achieving 2 as an AB and was head girl. Education. In 1982, Rowling took the entrance exams for Oxford University, but was not accepted and read for a BA in French and Classics at the University of Exeter. Martin Sorrell, a French professor at Exeter, remembers a quietly competent student with a denim jacket and dark hair, who, in academic terms, gave the appearance of doing what was necessary. Rowling recalls doing little work, preferring to listen to the Smiths and read Dickens and Tolkien. After a year of study in Paris, Rowling graduated from Exeter in 1986 and moved to London to work as a researcher and bilingual secretary for Amnesty International. In 1988, Rowling wrote a short essay about her time studying classics entitled, "What Was the Name of That Nymph Again?" or Greek and Roman Studies recalled. It was published by the University of Exeter's journal Pegasus. Inspiration: a mother's death. After working at Amnesty International in London, Rowling and her then-boyfriend decided to move to Manchester, where she worked at the Chamber of Commerce. In 1990, while she was on a 4-hour delayed train trip from Manchester to London, the idea for a story of a young boy attending a school of wizardry came fully formed into her mind. When she had reached her Clapham Junction flat, she began to write immediately. In December, Rowling's mother Anne died after 10 years suffering from multiple sclerosis. Rowling was writing Harry Potter at the time and had never told her mother about it. Her mother's death heavily affected Rowling's writing, and she channeled her own feelings of loss by writing about Harry's own feelings of loss in greater detail in the first book. Marriage, divorce, and single parenthood. An advertisement in The Guardian led Rowling to move to Porto, Portugal, to teach English as a foreign language. She taught at night, and began writing in the day while listening to Tchaikovsky's violin concerto. After 18 months in Porto, she met Portuguese television journalist Jorge Arantes in a bar, and found they shared an interest in Jane Austen. They married on 16 October 1992. And the child, Jessica Isabel Rowling Arantes, was born on 27 July 1993 in Portugal. Rowling had previously suffered a miscarriage. The couple separated on 17 November 1993. Biographers have suggested that Rowling suffered domestic abuse during her marriage, although the extent is unknown. In December 1993, Rowling and her then-infant daughter moved to Edinburgh, Scotland, to be near Rowling's sister, with 3 chapters of what would become Harry Potter in her suitcase. 7 years after graduating from university, Rowling saw herself as a failure. Her marriage had failed, and she was jobless with a dependent child. But she described her failure as liberating and allowing her to focus on writing. During this period, Rowling was diagnosed with clinical depression and contemplated suicide. Her illness inspired the characters known as Dementors, soul-sucking creatures introduced in the 3rd book. Rowling signed up for welfare benefits, describing her economic status as being poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain, without being homeless. Rowling was left in despair after her estranged husband arrived in Scotland, seeking both her and her daughter. She obtained an order of restraint, and Arantes returned to Portugal, with Rowling filing for divorce in August 1994. She began a teacher training course in August 1995 at the Maury House School of Education, at Edinburgh University. After completing her first novel while living on state benefits, she wrote in many cafes, especially Nicholson's Cafe, and the Elephant House, wherever she could get Jessica to fall asleep. In a 2001 BBC interview, Rowling denied the rumour that she wrote in local cafe to escape from her unheated flat, pointing out that it had heating. One of the reasons she wrote in cafe was that taking her baby out for a walk was the best way to make her fall asleep. Harry Potter. In 1995, Rowling finished her manuscript for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone on an old manual typewriter. Upon the enthusiastic response of Brian E. Evans, a reader who had been asked to review the book's first 3 chapters, the Fulham-based Christopher Little literary agents agreed to represent Rowling in her quest for a publisher. The book was submitted to 12 publishing houses, all of which rejected the manuscript. A year later, she was finally given the green light by editor Barry Cunningham from Bloomsbury, a publishing house in London. The decision to publish Rowling's book owes much to Alice Newton, the 8-year-old daughter of Bloomsbury's chairman, who was given the first chapter to review by her father and immediately demanded the next. Although Bloomsbury agreed to publish the book, Cunningham says that he advised Rowling to get a day job, since she had little chance of making money in children's books. Soon after, in 1997, Rowling received an £8,000 grant from the Scottish Arts Council to enable her to continue writing. In June 1997, Bloomsbury published Philosopher's Stone with an initial print run of 1,000 copies, 500 of which were distributed to libraries. Today, such copies are valued between £16,000 and £25,000. 5 months later, the book won its first award, a Nestlé Smarties Book Prize. In February, the novel won the British Book Award for Children's Book of the Year, and later, the Children's Book Award. In early 1998, an auction was held in the United States for the rights to publish the novel, and was won by Scholastic Inc. for $105,000. Rowling said that she nearly died when she heard the news. In October 1998, Scholastic published Philosopher's Stone in the US under the title of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, a change Rowling says she now regrets, and would have fought if she had been in a better position at the time. Rowling moved from her flat with the money from the Scholastic sale into 19 Hazelbank Terrace in Edinburgh. Its sequel, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, was published in July 1998. And again Rowling won the Smarties Prize. In December 1999, the third novel, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, won the Smarties Prize, making Rowling the first person to win the award 3 times running. She later withdrew the fourth Harry Potter novel from contention to allow other books a fair chance. In January 2000, Prisoner of Azkaban won the inaugural Whitbread Children's Book of the Year award, though it lost the Book of the Year prize to Seamus Heaney's translation of Beowulf. The fourth book, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, was released simultaneously in the UK and the US on the 8th of July 2000 and broke sales records in both countries. 372,775 copies of the book were sold in its first day in the UK, almost equaling the number Prisoner of Azkaban sold during its first year. In the US, the book sold 3 million copies in its first 48 hours, smashing all records. Rowling said that she had had a crisis while writing the novel and had to rewrite one chapter many times to fix a problem with the plot. Rowling was named Author of the Year in the 2000 British Book Awards. A wait of 3 years occurred between the release of Goblet of Fire and the fifth Harry Potter novel, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This gap led to press speculation that Rowling had developed writer's block, speculations she denied. Rowling later said that writing the book was a chore, that it could have been shorter, and that she ran out of time and energy as she tried to finish it. The sixth book, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, was released on the 16th of July 2005. It too broke all sales records, selling 9 million copies in its first 24 hours of release. In 2006, Half-Blood Prince received the Book of the Year prize at the British Book Awards. The title of the seventh and final Harry Potter book was announced on the 21st of December 2006 as Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. In February 2007, it was reported that Rowling wrote on a bust in her hotel room at the Balmoral Hotel in Edinburgh that she had finished the seventh book in that room on 11 January 2007. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was released on the 21st of July 2007 and broke its predecessor's record as the fastest-selling book of all time. It sold 11 million copies in the first day of release in the United Kingdom and United States. The book's last chapter was one of the earliest things she wrote in the entire series. Harry Potter is now a global brand worth an estimated $15 billion. And the last 4 Harry Potter books have consecutively set records as the fastest-selling books in history. The series, totaling 4,195 pages, has been translated, in whole or in part, into 65 languages. The Harry Potter books have also gained recognition for sparking an interest in reading among the young at a time when children were thought to be abandoning books for computers and television. Although it is reported that despite the huge uptake of the books, adolescent reading has continued to decline. Harry Potter films. In October 1998, Warner Brothers purchased the film rights to the first 2 novels for a 7-figure sum. A film adaptation of Harry Potter and The Philosopher's Stone was released on 16 November 2001, and Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets on 15 November 2002. Both films were directed by Chris Columbus. The film version of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was released on 4 June 2004, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. The fourth film, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, was directed by Mike Newell, and released on 18 November 2005. The film of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix was released on 11 July 2007. David Yates directed, and Michael Goldenberg wrote the screenplay, having taken over the position from Steve Kloves. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince was released on 15 July 2009. David Yates directed again, and Kloves returned to write the script. Warner Brothers filmed the final installment of the series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, in 2 segments, with Part 1 being released on 19 November 2010 and Part 2 being released on 15 July 2011. Yates directed both films. Warner Brothers took considerable notice of Rowling's desires and thoughts when drafting her contract. One of her principal stipulations was the films be shot in Britain, with an all-British cast, which has been generally adhered to. Rowling also demanded that Coca-Cola, the victor in the race to tie in the products to the film series, donate $18 million to the American charity Reading is Fundamental, as well as several community charity programs. The first 4, 6th, 7th, and 8th films were scripted by Steve Kloves. Rowling assisted him in the writing process, ensuring that his scripts did not contradict future books in the series. She told Alan Rickman and Robbie Coltrane certain secrets about their characters before they were revealed in the books. Daniel Radcliffe asked her if Harry died at any point in the series. Rowling answered him by saying, "You have a death scene," thereby not explicitly answering the question. Director Steven Spielberg was approached to direct the first film, but dropped out. The press has repeatedly claimed that Rowling played a role in his departure, but Rowling stated that she had no say in who directed the films, and would not have vetoed Spielberg. Rowling's first choice for the director had been Monty Python member Terry Gilliam, but Warner Brothers wanted a family-friendly film and chose Columbus. Rowling had gained some creative control on the films, reviewing all the scripts as well as acting as a producer on the final 2-part installment, Deathly Hallows. Rowling, producers David Heyman and David Barron, along with directors David Yates, Mike Newell and Alfonso Cuarón, collected the Michael Balcon Award for Outstanding British Contribution to Cinema at the 2011 British Academy Film Awards in honour of the Harry Potter film franchise. In September 2013, Warner Brothers announced an expanded creative partnership with Rowling, based on a planned series of films about Newt Scamander, author of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. The first film, scripted by Rowling, was released in November 2016, and is set roughly 70 years before the events of the main series. In 2016, it was announced that the series would consist of 5 films, with the second scheduled for release in November 2018. Financial success. In 2004, Forbes named Rowling as the first person to become a US dollar billionaire by writing books, the second richest female entertainer, and the 1,062nd richest person in the world. Rowling disputed the calculations, and said she had plenty of money, but was not a billionaire. The 2016 Sunday Times Rich List estimated Rowling's fortune at £600 million. ranking her as the joint 197th richest person in the UK. In 2012, Forbes removed Rowling from their rich list, claiming that her $160 million in charitable donations and the high tax rate in the UK meant she was no longer a billionaire. In February 2013, she was assessed as the 13th most powerful woman in the United Kingdom by Woman's Hour on BBC Radio 4. In 2001, Rowling purchased a 19th-century estate house, Kilachassie House, on the banks of the River Tay, near Aberfeldy, in Perth and Kinross. Rowling also owns a £4.5 million Georgian house in Kensington, West London, on a street with 24-hour security. In 2017, Rowling was worth an estimated £650 million according to the Sunday Times Rich List. Remarriage and Family. On 26 December 2001, Rowling married Neil Murray, a Scottish doctor, in a private ceremony at her home, Kilachassie House, near Aberfeldy. Their son, David Gordon Rowling Murray, was born on 24 March 2003. Shortly after Rowling began writing Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, she ceased working on the novel to care for David in his early infancy. Rowling is a friend of Sarah Brown, wife of former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, whom she met when they collaborated on a charitable project when Sarah Brown's son Fraser was born in 2003. Rowling was one of the first to visit her in hospital. Rowling's youngest child, daughter Mackenzie Jean Rowling Murray, to whom she dedicated Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, was born on 23 January 2005. In October 2012, a New Yorker magazine article stated that the Rowling family lived in a 17th-century Edinburgh house, concealed at the front by tall conifer hedges. Prior to October 2012, Rowling lived near the author Ian Rankin, who later said she was quiet and introspective, and that she seemed in her element with children. The family resides in Scotland. The Casual Vacancy. In July 2011, Rowling parted company with her agent, Christopher Little, moving to a new agency founded by one of his staff, Neil Blair. On 23 February 2012, his agency, The Blair Partnership, announced on its website that Rowling was set to publish a new book targeted at adults. In a press release, Rowling said that her new book would be quite different from Harry Potter. In April 2012, Little, Brown and Company announced that the book was entitled The Casual Vacancy and would be released on 27 September 2012. Rowling gave several interviews and made appearances to promote The Casual Vacancy, including at the London South Bank Centre, the Cheltenham Literature Festival, Charlie Rose and the Lenox Love Book Festival. In its first 3 weeks of release, The Casual Vacancy sold over 1 million copies worldwide. On 3 December 2012, it was announced that the BBC would be adapting The Casual Vacancy into a television drama miniseries. Rowling's agent, Neil Blair, acted as producer through his independent production company, and with Rick Sennett serving as executive producer. Rowling collaborated on the adaptation, serving as an executive producer for the series. The series aired in 3 parts from 15 February to 1 March 2015. Cormoran strike. In 2007, during the Edinburgh Book Festival, author Ian Rankin claimed that his wife spotted Rowling scribbling away at a detective novel in a cafe. Rankin later retracted the story, claiming it was a joke. But the rumor persisted. with a report in 2012 in The Guardian speculating that Rowling's next book would be a crime novel. In an interview with Stephen Fry in 2005, Rowling claimed that she would much prefer to write any subsequent books under a pseudonym, but she conceded to Jeremy Paxman in 2003 that if she did, the press would probably find out in seconds. In April 2013, Little Brown published The Cuckoo's Calling, the purported acute but novel of author Robert Galbraith, whom the publisher described as a former plainclothes Royal Military Police investigator who had left in 2003 to work in the civilian security industry. The novel, a detective story in which private investigator Cormoran Strike unravels the supposed suicide of a supermodel, sold 1,500 copies in hardback and received acclaim from other crime writers and critics. A Publishers Weekly review called the book a stellar debut, while the Library Journal's mystery section pronounced the novel the debut of the month. India Knight, a novelist and columnist for The Sunday Times, tweeted on the 9th of July 2013 that she had been reading The Cuckoo's Calling and thought it was good for a acute but novel. In response, a tweeter called Jude Caligari said that the author was Rowling. Knight queried this but got no further reply. Knight notified Richard Brooks, arts editor of The Sunday Times, who began his own investigation. After discovering that Rowling and Galbraith had the same agent and editor, he sent the books for linguistic analysis, which found similarities, and subsequently contacted Rowling's agent, who confirmed it was Rowling's pseudonym. Within days of Rowling being revealed as the author, sales of the book rose by 4,000%. And Little Brown printed another 140,000 copies to meet the increase in demand. A signed copy of the first edition sold for $4,453, while an unsold signed first edition copy was being offered for $6,188. Rowling said that she had enjoyed working under a pseudonym. On her Robert Galbraith website, Rowling explained that she took the name from one of her personal heroes, Robert Caddy, and a childhood fantasy name she had invented for herself, Ella Galbraith. Soon after the revelation, Brooks pondered whether Jude Caligari could have been Rowling as part of wider speculation that the entire affair had been a publicity stunt. Some also noted that many of the writers who had initially praised the book, such as Alex Gray or Val McDermid, were within Rowling's circle of acquaintances. Both vociferously denied any foreknowledge of Rowling's authorship. Judith "Jude" Caligari was the best friend of the wife of Chris Gossage, a partner within Russell's solicitors, Rowling's legal representatives. Rowling released a statement saying she was disappointed and angry. Russell's apologized for the leak, confirming it was not part of a marketing stunt, and that the disclosure was made in confidence to someone he, Gossage, trusted implicitly. Russell's made a donation to the Soldiers' Charity on Rowling's behalf and reimbursed her for her legal fees. On 26 November 2013, the Solicitors Regulation Authority issued Gossage a written rebuke and £1,000 fine for breaching privacy rules. On 17 February 2014, Rowling announced that the second Cormoran Strike novel, named The Silkworm, would be released in June 2014. It sees Strike investigating the disappearance of a writer hated by many of his old friends for insulting them in his new novel. In 2015, Rowling stated on Galbraith's website that the third Cormoran Strike novel would include an insane amount of planning, the most I have done for any book one have written so far. I have color-coded spreadsheets so I can keep a track of where I am going. On 24 April 2015, Rowling announced that work on the third book was completed. titled Career of Evil. It was released on the 20th of October 2015 in the United States, and on the 22nd of October 2015 in the United Kingdom. In 2017, the BBC released a Cormoran Strike television series, starring Tom Burke as Cormoran Strike. It was picked up by HBO for distribution in the United States and Canada. Rowling confirmed that she would release the fourth installment of the series sometime in 2017. In March 2017, Rowling revealed the fourth novel's title via Twitter in a game of Hangman with her followers. After many failed attempts, followers finally guessed correctly. Rowling confirmed that the next novel's title is Lethal White. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVD Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.